Ask yourself what's not working for you right now. Is it the team? Is it your personal life? Is it you're stressed, you're overwhelmed, you're over all of the overs? I've heard it all. Overwhelmed, overworked, understaffed, all the things. And what's not working for you is the person behind the title. Ask yourself that question. Now, the second 15-minute segment that you do is one question. What's not working in your team? And being honest. If I understand people may need certain things and assistance with their job, but at the end of the day, can you do the job?
Yeah.
If the job is typing 35 words per minute, can you type 35 words per minute? If you're in sales, are you hitting your sales numbers? So as leaders of people, managers of people at all levels, this irritation that we silently feel is because we're not addressing the elephant in the room, and it's the underperformance.
LaDawn is the CEO of Building Teams with the Story Group, a firm that equips organizations to build teams that drive business growth. She has taught her team building methodology to leaders at NASA, Amazon, the bipartisan group of the United States House of Congressmen, Charles Schwab, Abbott Pharmaceuticals, and Union Bank, and her insights have been featured on Inc. magazine and Fortune. With a unique ability to bridge financial strategy and the complexities of people and culture, LaDawn and her team provide actionable solutions that foster accountability, align leadership goals with team execution, and enhance overall team performance. LaDawn believes the business can be a force for good, starting with the leadership at the helm. She is also an avid traveler, a history enthusiast, a lover of great books, and never turns down a good cup of coffee. Enjoy the show. Greetings, and welcome to When the Moment Chooses You. I am your host, Coach Charlene, and I am extremely excited and honored to have LaDawn Townsend with me today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Coach Charlene, for having me here. I am excited about this conversation today.
Yeah, I really am. I always like to set a little bit of context, and really the birthing of When the Moment Chooses You came from 2020, really. It was the unfortunate murder of George Floyd. I found my voice within my organization. I began to start speaking up against anything that I saw wasn't right, and also being like the healing catalyst for transformation to share my story as well. And so I like to bring in people that can share their moments, their stories of things they did, whether it was to start a business or whether it was to transform themselves or the organizations that they work for. And so that's a little bit about what When the Moment Chooses You is. I met LaDawn at this, we were on a Bible study together, and she spoke. And I was like in awe of when she spoke. And so I always tell a little bit of how I met someone. So I really, really am excited about this conversation. So LaDawn, why don't you do us a favor and tell us about yourself first?
Well, thank you for that introduction. I mean, just knowing the work that you do and your CV and your heart for people, the words that you've just spoken are very humbling for me. Thank you so much. My name is LaDawn Townsend. I'm the CEO of the Story Group, and the frontline headline of what we tell people is my team and I, for over 10 years, equip organizations to build high-performing teams and culture that drive business growth. The behind the scenes of that is that we are confidants for leaders that have to make the tough calls in a variety of industries, and I have been honored to walk alongside them in countries around the world, whether it's public sector, private sector, whether it's India, Africa, the US, really helping them making those tough decisions to move the needle between that ever-evolving gap of people and business performance. And so it is a pleasure to do that. And I'll be celebrating 10 years in business this November.
Wow, congratulations. That is wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, wow. So we're going to get into that, definitely. Before we get into that, though, and by the way, I will be putting her bio in the description on our YouTube. So make sure you check her out and her website and everything. So before we get into some of the things that you do, I would love to like know a little bit more about you. Like, is like, for instance, I like to unpack stories of moments that have happened in our lives to transform us. Have you always, or actually, what were you doing before you started your business?
So the catalyst for me, I think, to sum up my career, if we had time to sit down over a cup of coffee and just be together all day, I would love that. I would share my story of coming from, growing up with a family-owned business and being a part of the business and going into school and wanting to be this high achiever, because I just felt like there was an impact I was supposed to make. I can't really explain it outside of that. I just knew, when I would see people that would conquer a hill, you know, I just knew that that was a part of my tribe, and
Mm,
I love that piece of it. And so, what really, to sum up that high achiever, that high performer, because they're two different things, really for me came, I think, about almost 15 years ago, where I was still working in corporate America way before I started my company. And I found myself on a Friday sitting at my desk. I was a leader at the time, and I was taken from my desk, uh, put onto a stretcher in my office in front of employees and my boss, and put into an ambulance and taken to the emergency room because a client thought that I was having a stroke. And so I share that because it was a catalyst moment for me. It was a moment of opening my eyes to two things. One, this isn't the life I desired. And
yes.
two, I was working in a very toxic work environment and allowed my voice to be silenced. And
Mm,
the eye opening was when I was there, the doctor came to me and said, "Your levels have actually regulated out. I'm going to send you home in a few hours, but this is stress." And I said, "Doc, I'm a personality. I conquer the hill. I don't do stress." He said, "I don't care what you do. This is stress." And so it was in that moment that I had to make a decision as I'm laying in the hospital bed, and there's the orchestra of all the beeping machines nearby and people coming in and out, so you can never really sleep, right? And I just made a decision that this is not how I will be led, and this won't be the leader that I am. And that was the eye-opening moment for me. And then I left that company, went to work for an amazing company that then laid off my whole department. I started my business. So everything is for a reason. Nothing is ever wasted. But that was a moment for me of all of the conquer, all of the high performing. How do we put that in the right context to where we can be powerful leaders, but not burn ourselves out at the same time? And I think that is something a lot of industries are dealing with. You and I have talked about this,
yes.
especially the healthcare industry. I mean, they were under sort of the microscope and under the frying pan before the pandemic, and then everything just quadrupled during the pandemic and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, wow, that's pretty powerful, your story. I'm wondering, is that really why you started your business? Like, was that like the thing that
Yeah.
made you say, nope, this is what I'm going to do to change the world?
It was one of the, I didn't know at the time that I would start the business. I just knew I needed to figure this leadership thing out in a way
Okay.
that made sense for me. um, when I went to start my own business, there was the second phase of burnout. So I love the company that I went to work for, but I remember 2 weeks before I had gotten laid off, and I was watching a news story about a woman who was laid off. She was an executive and she received a severance, and she went opened a bakery. And I just remember in that moment saying a silent prayer of, God, if I'm given that opportunity, I will run with it. Like, it's one of those things, you say it before you really know you're saying it. And you need to be
Right.
careful what you ask for, because then you get it. And
Yes.
so 2 weeks later, I received a call from my boss and my boss's boss. And they said, LaDawn, we've just been let go. The team's been let go. You've been let go. And I didn't know what a severance is, I didn't know any of that. So I was just thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And so they explained it to me that basically, this is the package you get. And they said, but you have to return your computer. I said, the computer will be turned in today. Like, we will get the computer
Yes.
turned in today. Um, and so I just took it and ran. I just knew I could be successful in helping organizations with business performance. That's what I came from. That's what I did. And so I just came out the gate without, I mean, you always have some type of fear, but the calling was bigger than the fear. So I just came straight out the gate. And that's where we ended up. And it's now to be 10 years this month.
Well, that is amazing and very profound because, I always hear the statistics of how businesses fail in the first few years. So that's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. Kudos to you.
Thank you.
Back on the burnout part for just a moment. When you were talking, it was so good because I remember my burnout moment. I
Mm-hmm.
remember it so vividly because I went into the nursing profession because I love it. I absolutely love caring for other human beings. And so I'm cruising, I'm feeling really good and, making things happen. And then I went into leadership. And so, about maybe 4 years or so into leadership, that's where I start noticing. And what I noticed was in my presence and in my personality, I started being underlying irritated,
Yeah.
frustration. It's like that underneath stuff. But I'm a positive person, and we just do what we have to do. And but this nudging at me and gnawing at my soul was just so prevalent. And that's when my organization brought in the theory of caring science, and that is really a way of being while you're doing. And I got reignited just by that one session that I went in, and I was like, okay, I want to be a Caritas coach. I want to be this. I want to be that. My aha moment happened. But what would you say, LaDawn, to someone out there right now that's in the midst of burnout and they are stuck and do not know what to do? So, what kind of advice could you give them in this moment if they're watching?
Yeah. I think there's two groups I want to speak to on that.
Okay.
There is we're all leaders in some frame, some type of reference. There are leaders that lead people. They're directly responsible for managing people, and there are leaders that are leaders. And I think the latter group, the leaders that are leaders and they're feeling burnt out, I think the number one thing before you throw the baby out with the bathwater, meaning you quit your job, you throw away your business, whatever it is, even your marriage, is that you pause and you need a moment to refresh. A lot of the times, burnout is because we live in a very consumer driven world. I travel the world a lot. And I noticed that in some parts of the world, it's more culture and community, and others, it's very consumer driven, right? So it's always we
Yes.
have to get the next thing, do the next thing, acquire the next thing. And, the time to actually sit and think has escaped us. So I tell my clients this in our work is that you need time to go away. I don't care if it's you go sit in the Target parking lot with a Starbucks. Like I've had my mom clients who are leaders and executives. They tell me about this, and I'm like, is there a section in the Target parking lot where everybody sees they know what's happening when you pull up and you're just sitting there? So I guess there is. So whatever it may be, a weekend away, a night away, walking away from your desk, if you don't have time to plan something, 15 minutes away, silence your phone, go on do not disturb, don't even write anything down or take anything electronic with you, but just sit and ask yourself, be honest and ask yourself, what is not working for me in this moment?
Yeah.
You're the only one who needs to know the answer. And it's not that it'll fix it immediately, but the amount of pressure and stress that will come down off of your shoulders when you allow yourself to ask that question of what does your inner self need? When I was loaded onto that stretcher is because I was shoving it down and not asking myself, not even giving myself permission to ask the question, who does that?
Yeah.
A person who's giving to everyone else and not us. And my blood pressure, I think it was like 173 over 113. And I'm sure people in the medical
Wow.
industry, yes, of course, you know. And I remember that intervention. The client that came in, I later found out was the head EMT trainer for our whole county. He
Oh.
never came in on a Friday. He never came to my desk, but that day he did. So I
Wow.
share this from a real life experience of If you're irritated, frustrated, burnt out, exhausted, can't get out of bed in the morning, those are signs. I'm not a therapist, but there is some type of depression that is coming to attack you. It's the silent assassin of your greatness. So step away. 15 minutes. I don't care if you go hide behind a tree, sit in your car, blast the air conditioner, whatever it is, and just say, what is not working for me? Because your body is telling you what's not working. Something's not working.
Yeah, that
Now,
is powerful.
for my leaders, thank you. For my leaders that manage people, you need two 15-minute sections. Okay. You need that 15-minute segment. Ask yourself what's not working for you right now. Is it the team? Is it your personal life? Is it you're stressed, you're overwhelmed, you're over all of the overs? I've heard it all. Overwhelmed, overworked, understaffed, all the things. And what's not working for you is the person behind the title. Ask
Mm,
yourself that question. Now, the second 15-minute segment that you do is one question. What's not working in your team? And being honest. If it's negative Nancy, you got to address it. Sarcastic Sal, you got to address it. Belligerent Bob, you got to address it, right? If it's the employee that everybody loves, but they're just not performing, you have to address it, because we've come to a place somehow in the workplace where it's taboo to hold employees accountable to performance. Now, I understand people may need certain things and assistance with their job, but at the end of the day, can you do the job?
yeah.
If the job is typing 35 words per minute, can you type 35 words per minute? If you're in sales, are you hitting your sales numbers? So as leaders of people, managers of people at all levels, this irritation that we silently feel is because we're not addressing the elephant in the room, and it's the underperformance. And there's a
Mm,
lot of rules and regulations and HRs and laws that are actually crippling leaders from actually leading. But there
right.
are ways to just have a conversation, because here's what I have been saying since before the pandemic. So my firm, we're heavy on data. We need to know where are we going, what has happened in whatever we do. If we're fixing people, process, your profit engine, whatever it is. And we would do these case studies every year. And before the pandemic, I was talking about the trajectory to 2025. This was late 2019. We redid that because pandemic happened, right? And
Right.
so not only was it complete, sub industries and industries were obliterated overnight. I mean, I remember airline companies turning a part of their fleet into cargo jets because they were losing money because everything was grounded, right? And so they
Right.
had to pivot on the play, as I say. And so when we're looking at that and trying to be able to see what's going to happen, I've been talking about it since the pandemic, since like middle of 2020. We won't know how we shake out from an economic standpoint until probably Q1, Q2 of 2025. And that was before the two wars we're in right now. The Ukraine war was one, which is almost crippling a part of Europe from a resource perspective, and they're concerned about winter. And then we have what's happening in the Middle East with Israel and Palestine. So, and I'm not on the left or right side of the aisle. I serve both, so I have to have a bipartisan view. But what I am saying, it's going to impact the bottom line of companies and individuals. And so, if we do not get back to what is important, we're going to see companies really start to suffer. And when they suffer, what happens? We have to
Yes.
promotions stop, reduce in headcount, this pull of having people come back into the office. There's a few different viewpoints as why companies are doing that. So we have to get back to basics, but we can't get back to basics is as the leaders who are leading this if we're not honest with ourselves to say, I'm burnt out. My team, I can see they're burnt out and I want to conquer the hill, but it doesn't help to reach the goal. And you turn around and your team is completely exhausted or they've just quit halfway up the hill. So all of this ties in together.
Well, I think that is so profound what you just said because I've actually witnessed it, before, a few years before I left. But the wonderful thing that I had an opportunity to witness is like my CNE, for instance. She recognized that something is not going right with my team. It's hard for them to move forward. Everybody is like exhausted and depressed and not their normal selves,
Yeah.
because normally, they're driving things, they're getting the work done. But it was like this moment where we were stuck and nothing could happen until you actually acknowledge that, you know what, my leaders are burnt out and I got to do something about it. So I
Right.
really like that you're saying that, because unfortunately, you don't see that all the time.
Yeah.
You keep asking for production, but then you got broken people that are really trying their really hardest to get it.
Right.
So with that being said, what would you say to like a nurse leader in
Mm.
particular if they are in that space? So I know you told them they need to pause. They got that 2 15 minutes that they, what if they do that, LaDawn, and then
Mhm.
still stuff is brewing within them?
Yeah, there's a plan that's needed. So asking the question of what's not working needs to then go into what am I going to do about it? And I believe there is a
That's good.
short-term solution, a midterm, and a long-term solution. They all should tie together like a puzzle piece. So if you're seeing that your team is is feeling the pressure of what the work is, before you go in and start making tactical plays, the long term goal is to get them to perform, but to perform in a healthy and vibrant team culture, right?
Yes.
So that's the end goal, one of the end goals. The shortest term goal that you can do right now is if I see you, Charlene, going through that, I'm going to say, Charlene, do you have 5 minutes? I know we're swamped and busy. Sarah's going to take your ship. Can we go walk for 5 minutes and just talk? And you can say to them, now you want to sandwich it. So Charlene might be thinking, am I about to get fired? What is this about?
Right.
If you, depending on the relationship you have, and you can share with them, nothing's wrong. I
Right.
just want to see how you're doing and how I can help you. Preface it that way, especially if you don't have a relationship. And if
Yeah.
you don't have a relationship, make sure you go walk and talk with them somewhere public where people can see it.
Yes.
Like, don't go through a back hallway somewhere. I mean, you have to use sense, common sense. But here's what you want to do as the leader. You want to first come in and tell them why you're glad they're a part of the team. Charlene, I see how much you give to your patients and your coworkers. And I want to see, how are you doing? Is there anything I can help you with? And just to share with you, I'm going to have this conversation with everyone on the team. If you feel like sharing something now, great. If you don't, just know my door is really open to hearing you. Now, here's where some leaders, especially as A personalities, where we need to give people permission to be honest with us. We can say that, but what if they don't believe it? The
Right.
next thing you say with them is, and if there's ever been a time where you feel like, Charlene, you have not been able to come and talk to me honestly, I want to apologize for that. I'm aware of it, but I want you to know you can, and I invite you to. So, is there anything you'd be open to talking with me about today? And then you stop talking
Right.
and you let them talk.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Just the openness. And then
Mm-hmm.
just I mean, we had to do that a lot during
Yeah.
COVID-19 because we
Yes.
didn't get a chance to stop. So
Right.
everybody's just going on fumes. So to actually pause and be able to do that, you would see, like I would do that. And I would see people break like within minutes and they're
Yes.
just bawling. And so that care and that concern is saying, I see you. I hear you. I see that
Yeah.
you're struggling and I'm here for you. So that is so beautiful, LaDawn.
Yeah.
So,
And one other
okay.
thing I want to add to that, they may not see them as they're struggling. That's why you want to
Yeah.
preface it with anything you want to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Now, once they talk, just don't leave it open ended. Say,
Yes.
Charlene, thank you for being so transparent with me today.
Yes.
I'm going to take this away. And could you give me a week or two just to think about what we talked about? And I'd like to come back to you with how I can help. Could you give me that 2 weeks? It's about asking for permission. It's not like, okay, Charlene, in a week or two, I'll get back to you. Well, Charlene's like, great. I just opened my heart. I probably
Yeah.
cried in the hallway, right? So the key with this is transparency, ask
Yes.
permission, if they're open to talking to you, apologize in advance, even if it's a misunderstanding, and then create a next step by giving them the time frame of, hey, I'm going to sit and think with what you said. I need to think about this. Not like
Yes.
I'm just guns a blazing and I have the next step. I really want to be considerate of what you've shared with me. Could you give me time to think through it, and can I come back to you? That is consideration, and that's authentic leadership 100%.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, LaDawn, why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of like what you do? Like, just in general, I want you to just shine
Yeah.
right now and just tell us what you do for companies, just because
Mm.
I feel like you would be so impactful in so many different spaces. So, can you just share what you and your business is all about?
Yes, my team and I, we have one goal: to help organizations accelerate their business growth. And in that, there's a formula. So we've always taught this formula for about 10 years. It's our story framework. It's not necessarily, yes, how you communicate and tell the story, but our story framework includes strategy, team building, and everything that you need to not just hit the accelerated growth, but to sustain it. And that comes with a team culture, and it comes with a leadership team that can lead, and strategic thinking for the entire team. And so we have a holistic, comprehensive system that organizations we come in and teach, either from a full standpoint or from a specific area that needs support, all with the goal of let's get the growth accelerated, but let's have your team culture to be one where it can sustain it. And our main areas of focus are around people, around your process, and around your profit engine. Some organizations are leading with revenue models that are outdated, and that impacts your process and your client experience because you're trying to sell them a square peg and they're asking for a round hole, right? And then your
Right.
people are trying to do both. So, Rome wasn't built in a day, and our system addresses the entire organization, or we look at chapters at a time to see if we can support that in reaching the growth goal.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. In your history of your business, what are you seeing, especially post pandemic? Let me
Yeah.
just say it like that. Post pandemic, what are you seeing with organizations in
Mm.
general?
I say three top things. Number one, there's a lot of leadership retreats or team offsites or workshops being planned, and we're not really clear as to the why and the motive and what we want to take away. And really, when I see that, or I talk with an organization that wants us to come in and facilitate or train or do the workshop, my question is, why are we doing this? Are we addressing the core issue, or are we masking it, right? Because it's
Right.
great to bring people together, but bring people together that can also contribute to the dinner at the table. So a lot of these offsites and retreats, the leadership team is preparing the whole Thanksgiving dinner. Let's look at it that way, right? But if the goal is to get the team unified, maybe you find that your leadership team are working in silos. There's no strategic thinking. The teams are disconnected. They should be a part of the agenda and a part of the strategy that they bring to the table, which means there's some pre work, intentional pre work. So it's a productive 2 or 3 days that you're away. If not, it will turn into either a session of complaints, or you'll have people that are passively participating because they don't feel like their voice will be heard. So that's number one, an area of watch item, I would say. The second is not really having strategic innovation and thinking as to what your company needs to grow. We're doing things the way we used to do them, or now that the pandemic is quote unquote over or in a phase that's manageable, we're going back to what worked. No one can go back to what worked. Whether you're a streaming online service, whether you're in the hospitality industry, whether you're in the healthcare industry, manufacturing, everything has changed because the demand of the end customer or investors, if you're looking for that, has changed. So there needs to be not a throwing away of what you've done, but a refreshing of what you've done. And the third is around team culture. Now, let me define for everyone watching what culture is. I am not a DEI expert. That is not my lane. That's not my field. I've been teaching team on culture of organizations for over 20 years. Culture is the lifeblood of your organization. Culture is what will dictate your marketing, your sales, your client experience, your employee engagement, your rules, your standards, because this is our culture. This is what we do. And when your culture is positive and it's healthy and vibrant, DEI is a cousin to it, and you won't have as much challenges as we're seeing with organizations, because your culture demands for there to be diverse frames of thought and experience at the table. So culture is really the area. So just to sum that up for people, the three things I'm seeing is the offsites, retreats, and things, they really need more of a strategic insight, making sure that your revenue model is refreshed. And the third, your culture is, if you're finding your organization, there's sort of a smoke before fire, it's your culture. Before you look at doing anything else, there's something in the culture that is going to cause revenue leakage in your organization.
Yeah, wow. Post pandemic, it was happening before, incivility and toxic work environments, especially in this wonderful healthcare field
Yeah.
that we have. We've had more mean girls and mean boys
Mm.
in the profession, unfortunately. So, do you deal with incivility and bullying and all of that type of stuff too when you come into organizations?
We do. We take it from the place of a culture lens of business performance. Because here's the deal. And that's why I have the names of Negative Nancy, Sarcastic Sal, Belligerent Bob. I've used those names forever. And it's just recently I've had a Nancy, a Sal, and a Bob in my workshops. Um, so when we come in and take a look at that, and of course there's HR rules, and I always tell my clients, when you bring us in for engagements, depending on the engagement and if we're working pretty closely together, the cream will rise to the top of your staff. And I,
Mm,
I warn my stakeholders, my job is to help you see further ahead for your organization. So when you get to the fork in the road, you can say, story group prepared me for this versus no one prepared me for this.
right.
And in that, there will naturally be a revelation of what leaders are working and what leaders are not working. I would lose count of how many leaders, when going through our training and our system, they either self identify as this role is not for me and I'm the one holding back the organization. And then you can work with them on a transition plan, a referral plan to help them find new work. There's been leaders that have quit because they see the writing on the wall, or there's been things discovered that were things swept under the carpet. And then there's always the conversation I'll have with a leader who says, I think I have to make this decision and I didn't see this coming, right? And those are moments where as a leader your confidence can't be knocked, because how could you see this? And 8 times out of 10, these individuals that we find are no longer a fit for the organization are the senior leadership, and they're in some of the most trusted and top paid positions. Why? Because there's a lot of focus on frontline employees, mid-level managers, mid-level leaders, but those that are leading strategic initiative also need to be viewed and have their skill set sharpened. It's what I call a changing of the old guard mindset. We find,
Yeah.
wow, that old guard mindset has been revealed. And are you willing to flow, or are you going against the rub? And so when it comes to that, then we see, okay, this is why there was the bullying, or this is why this group feels that this manager is not flowing, or this is why this employee is really causing a bit of toxicity in this unit because the leader didn't address it, right? So it's the same thing. If you have one child, not to say that employees are children, but we'll use the example. When you go to a daycare, why do the daycare teachers make sure that little Tommy or little Sally that is not in nap time, or they're causing a ruckus? Because if you let one do it, everybody can start doing it, and then you just have chaos on your hand in the daycare, right? And so
Right.
that's a part of it. So when I hear, there's bullying, or there's not inclusion, or people are feeling siloed, or they're not being seen or heard, that is just a smoke signal. What is at the root of it? And at the root of it, it's been tolerated for quite some time. It's
Yeah.
behavior that's been tolerated for quite some time. And that's what needs to change.
Yeah. Powerful. Very powerful. Um, we're going to move into, let's see, there's something that I wanted to ask you about this cohesiveness and chaos.
Yes, yes.
So let's talk about that a little bit because I love to. I always used to say, because I worked in labor and delivery, so, and I used to do night shift. And so five women can come in all at one time and it produced major chaos.
Yeah.
And so I had to learn how to navigate and make sure that my authentic present provided peace versus the chaos so I can
Hmm.
shift the atmosphere.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that because I love
Yes.
that topic.
Business moves fast, every single industry, especially the industry of healthcare, because your end client is an individual. So you have to be there for them, right? And
Right.
so we're going to have chaotic moments. Chaos meaning everything is moving at the same time. But the cohesion in that is, can your team flow and all be on the same page? Am I able to see my coworker Sally? Because I work with her, because we have open communication, I can tell when they need help before they even ask they need help. Or if they ask me for help, I'm trusting it because I know that their work performance, their character has shined through time and time again. That's the cohesiveness for on the floor, actually dealing with the patients day to day. They come into the emergency room. You can't really tell them, oh, wait a minute. You could tell them to wait a minute, but these are people that are standing right there. And then also when it comes to the leadership team, same thing, many moving parts, 500 emails a day, meetings that could have been emails, right? All of those things. So
Yes.
we have to look to be cohesive as a team unit, because the chaos is not going to stop. But the chaos doesn't
Right.
have to be negative. It's just the pace of business. And that's what we need to not fight, but find a way to flow in that. And if your team culture is not connected, if it is disconnected, you will continue to be feeling like you're fighting a battle uphill.
Hmm, that's really good. I'm wondering, LaDawn, what do you see really for the future for organizations in particular? Because of all of the different landscape of all of the challenges that we're facing today,
Mm-hmm.
what do you see, as a visionary for our future?
I'd love to talk specifically about the healthcare industry first.
Okay, sounds good.
So, healthcare is always going to be needed. You have essential services that are always going to be needed, industries that'll never really go away, right? Hospitality, healthcare, manufacturing, technology. Technology will evolve, they'll all evolve, but we'll need them, right? Financial services. But with healthcare, when I think back on the earliest hospitals and the earliest nurses, I really think a standard was set on the people. Now, I have not been a nurse. That is not my calling. I just let you know right now, I would pass out band aids to everyone. That would be my shift. Um, and so healthcare is evolving because you have virtual telemedicine that is being
Yep.
launched by private companies. You have traveling nurses that have become a very big industry. And if we're honest, we have really almost like it is like it could be its own sports competition with recruiting and retaining top talent. I'm
Yeah.
hearing from leaders in organizations where their top nurses are offered a 30K upfront signing bonus to leave and come work within a week or two. So if
Yeah.
you're a nurse with student loans, with just debt, with trying to take care of your family, most of them will take it, right? And so it's a very competitive environment that still has to deliver exceptional patient care.
Right.
Added to that, the amount of grants and funding that can be available. I was watching a study of a hospital, I think it was being built in the Netherlands or Sweden, that was supposed to be, like a shining star example of the future of healthcare. And I think the budget is now 3 or 4 times more than what was initially granted. Also, the people that were brought in to build it and the processes weren't necessarily in the field. So it created communication and process gaps with people who didn't know how to use the system. And they were trying to create this whole new vernacular, not really with healthcare, like just use what the vernacular is. So I bring up these examples because healthcare is evolving. And if leaders were sitting down saying, what's the future of healthcare and how does my organization fit in? I would tell them to watch for 3 things. Number one is making sure that where the dollars are going, that they're actually going to reach your business objectives, and the individuals or experts you're working with, not only do they need to know your industry, but do they know business? There is never a time where if I was a part of this project that I heard about, would I be on the team and say, I'm completely okay with us creating a new vernacular with a multi-billion-dollar facility that needs to launch the same month and train the people the same month on all of this newness and service patients at the same time. And
Right.
one of the most damaging studies is because of one of the delays with the construction. I think there were 3 or 5 people that had to delay their surgeries that actually ended up passing away
Mm.
because the facility wasn't ready. So when it comes in a leadership position, watch the dollar. And you have to have people that know business, know your business and know business, and are asking you the tough questions. They're not always saying yes. They're justifying what the dollar amount is. That's number one. The second is really look at retaining top talent. And that's going to be having transparent conversations and following up with transparency as well. Because trust me, if you don't have a nurses union or an official one,
We
there's
do.
an unofficial one going on somewhere. There is an
Yeah.
unofficial meet me in the break room. We are all complaining about this situation. So that's it. And then the third is remembering your patient. It's great to have systems and structures that advance technology and make things smoother. But if it makes the experience of your patients feel cold and you're detached, that's not, I think, what healthcare started for.
Nope.
Healthcare is to serve that person. It's not even when I see nurses or soldiers or policemen, I always stop and say thank you for the work you do because their job is a calling. You don't just get into it for the money. I don't think so. You get into it because you want to help. Someone has a story. My grandma passed away and I remember how the nurse was kind, or I wanted to help this situation. I know one nurse, his grandfather, he's really popular online, but his grandfather really encouraged him to be a nurse. So he became a nurse and he talks about how he just wants to make his grandfather proud. So there's a story behind it. So when it comes to healthcare and the future of that specific industry, these are the 3 things for the leaders that are at the helm and called to make the decision. Really watch and safeguard. You have to almost look for the wolves in sheep clothing in that industry. Like, is your team of advisors, official or unofficial, are they all 100% in alignment and advising you for something that is for your good, or is it for their glory? That's what you have to really watch for.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty good. I'm wondering, LaDawn,
Mhm.
when you think about nursing and really anything that you want to do, how important is mentorship?
It is extremely important. And there's a difference with mentorship and a difference with coaching and accountability. A mentor is someone that is available for you to come to when you've walked through something, you're walking through, you're trying to figure it out, and they're there to bounce things off of, right? So they're not necessarily pursuing you. They're saying, I'm open to being a mentor for you. You're really going to go to them when it's needed. They may check in with you, but it's really more of you initiating it. When it comes to coaching and accountability and whatever that is, if it's that type of relationship, that's where the person is going to be, they're both going to be very honest and open, but they're going to guide you more in helping you get out of whatever the situation is or gaining a fresh perspective on it. Meaning getting out of, okay, you're feeling this way, do we want to stay in that or how do we move out of it, right? And I think that's really valuable and important. If people were saying, why, I want someone like either one, but I don't know the people or I don't have the resources for it. Within organizations, setting up a mentorship is one of the simplest ways to start. Because again, a mentor is someone like, I am willing to mentor these 3 people, and our relationship is you're going to come to me. Like, I'm here. I'm not going to chase you down essentially, but I'm here.
Yeah.
And that's when you show it, because the mentor is there to help guide you, to help get you to grow, not necessarily to hold your hand with that. So mentorship is very easy for an organization to set up. And it's really heavy accountability too. So that is what's so needed to find the mentor. Now,
Yes.
are you ready for a mentor? Which
Mm.
there's some homework and cleaning of house, right?
Yes.
Um, a mentor doesn't want mess. We all have some type of mess,
Right.
but sometimes we need to look at our own mess. I believe that your structure of your life is so important to helping with burnout. From your morning routine to what you eat, to how you move your body, if you're able to, whatever extent you can, to what you watch, to what you listen to the friends you have, all of that contributes to burnout. It all
Yeah.
contributes to it. Some of my closest friends, I can go to them in a moment of, I don't know what to do, and blah, 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 blah. And my closest friends will say, well, let's talk about it. They won't wallow in it with me. They'll pull
Right.
me out of the self pity party,
Yes.
remind me of who I am, and walk with me on something else. So prepare yourself to be mentored.
That's
One of the
good.
simplest ways to start with this may sound very non-traditional. When I'm feeling burnout, when I'm feeling like I'm just in this place of not myself, one of the things I do is I clean the space around me, whether it's my desk, whether it's my home. I mean, it's great to have someone to come in to clean your home, but there's something about a clean environment. And I mean,
Yes.
get the Lysol or the whatever, because it just ignites you. Clean out your car, get your place together. The next thing I do is I look at my routine. When do I get up in the morning? When do I go to bed? What am I going to eat during the day? Am I fueling this vehicle that I'm pushing to go 200 miles per hour? And when I have those two things put together, they're out of my mind. And then I believe the mentor can come. But if all of that is chaotic in the
Chaotic.
negative,
Yeah.
your mentor will pick up on it. And you got to address all that first before we can really start talking about what needs to be addressed.
Yeah, that's really good. And I asked that question because you talked about accountability really strongly. And I thought I really love the way you actually talked about it because people don't really want to be held accountable.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that in the past, and that accountability is so critical because it really destroys the team.
Yeah,
Because if we're not
100%.
addressing, yeah, those people that are really slacking off and not doing the work, the high performers are looking at it and getting discouraged and pulling away and
Yeah.
pulling back. So I really love how you frame that. So thank you so much for that. And
Yes.
so I'm not going to hold you too much longer, but I do want three wisdom gems and I'm keeping it like totally open for you. I'm not going to like guide it, but can you give me three wisdom gems to inspire someone today?
Oh, the first one that comes to mind is a good book. And
Mm,
there's a few different books out there, but what came to mind for me is The Traveler's Gift by Andy Andrews.
mm,
I read that book a few times over the past year. The first time it was given to me, I mean, I digested it like, I think in 2 weeks. And not to give it away, but it's a story about a man's journey of going from the lowest part of his career in life to really finding out what he was called to do and how it could be simple steps to get there. There's one part I'll share with you in the book. This won't give it away, but he's meeting on his journey an individual. And in the journey, the individual is sharing with him, they're in this warehouse. And in the warehouse, there's filing cabinets and there's pictures of family. I mean, there's stuff everywhere. And he keeps saying, What is all this? And the person finally turns to him and says, these are all of the dreams that never came to fruition because people quit.
mm.
And
Wow.
if that moved you, that's like a tenth of what the book will do. So
Oh,
get the
wow.
book,
Yes.
sit somewhere quiet, and read it and allow yourself to absorb it. The second gem is really having time to think. If you're apprehensive about having time alone with your own thoughts, and you're going through a lot, whatever that may be, it is the time to go through it and to write it out. Because if we keep it in our head, it just stresses us. But if we write it out, you can really say, maybe this isn't as bad, or no, I can do this, or gosh, dog it, the decision is right in front of me. Like it's totally different. And then the third, and I just take this from my own personal experience, fuel your body with food that fuels you, that makes you feel good. Now, I also love a good Chipotle burrito like everybody else, right? Like, come on, it's pretty good. But I find that in order for me to feel powerful, to feel that way, and I've been on my own healthy living journey for years. I went from a size 24 to a 12, all natural, but I needed that. I mean, after you come from the emergency room with 173 blood pressure, over
Yeah.
113. And I was like,
Right.
oh, is that good? And they were saying, no, that's not good. Those are not good numbers. No, that's not good numbers. So now I'm just let everyone know there might be healthcare people watching. The numbers have been good for close to a
Yay.
decade. I'm very close to coming off my meds for high blood pressure. Don't write in. I'm okay. Um, it was funny because my blood pressure dropped after I started my business, and my doctor was like, "That doesn't normally happen. Like, what did you do?" But the other thing is fueling your body. You know, it's amazing. Nurses, man, you guys are busy all the time, from the leadership to the front line. Find some snacks, some food, some things that help to just fuel you. For me, I love making my lunch in the morning when I have to go somewhere because it's a part of a tradition. It just, I know that that's my resource. My body can keep going. Those would be the gyms, I would say. It's not necessarily take this class, get this, do this certificate. The best way to start by transforming yourself as a leader is looking at yourself. That's where I would
Yeah.
say to begin.
Well, that was beautiful. And thank you so much for those wisdom gems. I am wondering if people want to get your services, how can they get in touch with you?
Yes, you can visit story, STORI group.co, or at LaDawn Townsend on LinkedIn, and Twitter is where I mainly hang out. Would love to talk with you. You can schedule a call. And depending on when this comes out, we have an upcoming webinar that I'm doing. It's for senior leaders that have direct reports. You're responsible for people, process, or profits. And it is both sides of the aisle. How do senior leaders lead in a post election world? We're going to have that intimate offline conversation. You're more than welcome to come. It's 60 minutes. It is complimentary. There is a brief application because we're just cultivating the right space for leaders to really hear about this case study and get some instruction on it. And would love to have you part of that. You can visit story, STORI group.co, click on webinars to register.
Okay, great. And when is that going to take place?
It's going to happen on October 29th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you
Okay.
miss that one, we do have something coming up in November after the election because it's a conversation people are having
Yes.
already, and we want to help equip leaders with it. So just reach out. We'll let you know what's coming up and how we can support you in that or any area around accelerating your organization's growth.
Yes. Well, oh my gosh, LaDawn, you are such a blessing to humanity. Thank
Oh,
you so much. I'm telling you guys, I had a strategy session with her, off the hook. I mean, I'm still tasting on the wisdom that this woman has. Is so amazing. And I'm so grateful for you and who you have been called to be for organizations and really to our world. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
thank you, Coach Charlene. Thank you for having me here today. And I'm excited about the impact you'll make in the clients' lives that you will serve. And so I'm just honored to walk alongside this journey with you and to be on your show today. Thank you so much.
I want to thank you for tuning in to another inspiring episode of When the Moment Chooses You. I'm your host, Coach Charlene, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Each journey we've shared today is a reminder that when the moment chooses you, the possibilities are endless.